Well, the offseason wasn't very long. The break from this podcast wasn't very long. I think it was 10 days, 2 weeks,
Yeah, I was gonna
something to that effect. Rachel Nichols.
We're going to take a break, but then you just come back and give the people what they want.
It's just stuff happening still, right? Like when I saw Luka Doncic at the LA practice facility and later at the Backstreet Boy concert. Shout out Luka for going to the Backstreet Boys. I went a few weeks ago. You knew you had to jump back on the pod feed and talk about that and a few other things that are going on in the NBA. And so it feels that ends the offseason.
I can't let you continue until you explain yourself that you went to the Backstreet Boys concert. You are not in the demo for that, I just like to add.
I am in the demo for that. Are you kidding me? I am exactly in the demo. I am mid-40s. Yes. The Backstreet Boys were big in the 1990s. Those were my formative years, early 2000s. I am, trust me, based on the audience demographics in the Sphere, it is entirely my demo. There are a few in and out of that demo, but it is entirely...
it would be a younger crowd, like Luka's age or 30 or 30.
No. What is it? It's a Gen X crowd, I think.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Great. The Sphere was well worth it. Every nickel.
Boys for life.
That is not any of their songs. You clearly do not know the Backstreet Boys. That is not... Doesn't sound anything like any one of their songs.
I Want It That Way, right?
And yes, that's the banger.
I wasn't into boy bands.
What?
Yeah.
Were you listening to like Zeppelin?
Well, no, but I like rock music more than
Foghat. Oh, rap music. Okay.
Rock music more than pop.
Rock. Oh, I thought you were saying that. Oh.
I like a little edge, Chris. I like a little edge. I like
no edge.
5 dudes singing with each other in hair mousse, but
Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, 98 Degrees. We all listened to them back in the day. They were all on my playlist back in those days. I'm sure there are a lot of people right now just clicking off on their. We're not. We will not belabor the point on the Backstreet Boys. I do want to start with the Luka Doncic signing, the re-signing of Luka Doncic to an extension. Because for the last few weeks, the NBA world has been kind of circling that August 2nd date. That is the date Luka was eligible to sign a contract extension with the Lakers. There were some questions swirling about would he or wouldn't he? Was he waiting to see what the Lakers were going to do? If there was going to be more upgrades, was going to wait a little bit longer to sign the extension? No, the answer is he wanted to sign the extension. He signed it the first day he was eligible for it. It was obviously a planned event. You had a whole bunch of Lakers that showed up there. They flew to Vegas right after that. He gets a 3-year, $165 million extension. Last year is a player option, which would free Luka to sign a 5-year, $417 million deal, which would basically get him back all the money he lost by going from Los Angeles to Dallas. So this feels like a pretty significant, milestone for the Lakers to get Luka Doncic under contract for at least the next 3 seasons. And based on, the obvious math, it's very likely that we see Luka as a member of the Lakers for the rest of his career. So what did you make of the quick signing by Luka Doncic?
Well, I liked a few things about it. First of all, the fact that it was so clearly choreographed and planned. I mean, they did go to that Backstreet Boys concert that night later with both owners, the transition from Jeannie Buss to Mark Walters and several of their teammates and JJ Redick. That stuff does not come together at a moment's notice. So clearly this was telegraphed quite some time before. And that tells you just how solid the relationship between the franchise and Luka is, which is pretty cool for a guy who clearly had some problems with his relationship with the last franchise. I liked the fact that, so many of the Lakers came out. I tweeted something saying, so much of the Lakers roster is here, and people took that as a shot at LeBron or Austin Reeves. It wasn't. It was the point that in the summer, it is very hard to get that many guys on a team there. It was unusual. And so seeing that was very interesting to me too, was just that so many of those other players made the point of being in town and at the facility. I thought that really spoke in a positive way to sort of where he is with his teammates and this team. One of the things I thought was interesting, Chris, though, was that, I don't know, in the actual photos of him actually signing the contract, there was a video board and it said the beginning in Slovenian. And that apparently, according to our friend Dan Wilkie, was put there by his management. So the fact that his idea of this is that it's the beginning of something, and he talked in the presser too about that, I thought was just an interesting peek into his mindset.
Yeah, it's huge for the Lakers to have the full commitment from Luka Doncic, to have him at least for the next 3 years, and more likely than not, the rest of his NBA career. It's enormous. Luka is going to enter next season as a top 5 MVP candidate. He's already proven he can take a team to the NBA Finals. This is huge for the Lakers. And I think it allows the Lakers to look at the rest of the board and to focus on everything else. And what I'm focused on with the Lakers, and we're going to get to LeBron and the short term in a minute, but what I'm focused on with the Lakers is what they can do in the summer of 2026. Having Luka locked in for the long term. Having cap flexibility, which for now, the contract of LeBron and Austin Reeves coming off the books. The Lakers, they'll have that flexibility. They'll also have the ability to trade first-round draft picks in 2026, 2031, and 2033. They'll also have the ability, if my research here is correct, to trade 3 first-round pick swaps. So 28, 30, and 32. So that's basically 6 first-round draft picks that they can deal, which coupled with financial flexibility, that makes them really dangerous. And look, there are the obvious players out there. There's Giannis for now anyway. There's someone like Jokic. Like there's a lot of big names that could be, potentially available in the summer of 2026. Now, some people might say, well, the Lakers, there are still teams that could outbid them. There are still teams with better young talent. You have to remember, though, like players have power in these situations. De'Aaron Fox, someone we're going to talk about later. Like having 1 year left on his contract with Sacramento allowed him to dictate where he wanted to go, which was San Antonio. That was the only place he wanted to play at. So let's just say star X that is out there with 1 year or 2 years left on his contract. If that player says, look, I'm not going to sign an extension anywhere but the Los Angeles Lakers, well, that team then has to deal with the Lakers and effectively take what the Lakers are going to offer. So my big takeaway from seeing Luka sign is got to be a big relief for Rob Pelinka and the staff there to get that firm commitment. But also, here they come. Like the next summer is, I think, the most significant summer in recent franchise history. I don't want to go how far back I want to go because you got the Kobe deal, but like you got a lot of things in play in the summer of 2026.
Yeah. I mean, this summer they signed LeBron, I think was a pretty big deal as well for them. But you look at their cap going forward, and the only player signed for the 2028 season is Luka Doncic. Now, I expect, as you noted, Austin Reeves, he's probably going to sign an extension, but it won't be for the kind of amount that would prevent another big player from coming there. So it is just really so wide open for them. And that is a little bit the LeBron situation, which I know we're transitioning to, is just the issue with LeBron from the Lakers side is wanting to keep those books clean in case a Giannis is available, in case a Jokic is available, as opposed to having 2 players on max 50 million plus, 60 million plus salaries that they can't then go out and get Luka's co-star for the next 5 years because they've got LeBron James on their books for 1 more year if they extend him.
Yeah, and just to correct myself there, you're right. Austin Reeves has 1 year left in his contract after this season. It's Rui Hachimura that comes off the books. His $18 million salary comes off the books. Gabe Vincent's salary comes off the books. Maxi Kleber's contract comes off the books. So they have a lot of financial flexibility next summer. And obviously LeBron, the $50 million salary comes off the books as well. So long-term, things are looking really good. Mm-hmm. Short-term, the Lakers still have to figure out what this year is going to look like and how aggressive they're going to be to try to procure talent, not just over the next month, 2 months, but also into the February trade deadline. LeBron James was not at the press conference. Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill here. Bronny James wasn't there either. Mm-hmm. But LeBron was in Los Angeles by his own Instagram feed. Like, he was working out in the greater Los Angeles area. So he was around. I don't know exactly where Bronny James was, but there were a lot of players at that presser. Not everybody, but a lot of players. Look at the pictures. The full dais. A lot of guys. DeAndre Ayton hadn't played a minute there. He was there. Marcus Smart hasn't played a minute there. He was there. I'll put the question to you. I'll throw this hand grenade at you. LeBron not being there. Big deal, kind of a big deal, nothing burger. Where do you put it on the LeBron drama scale?
Well, look, I don't know technically where LeBron was at 10:32 that morning. He had posted the pictures of him working out from the Clippers' old facility, which was not an accident. He also then, at some point over the weekend, left for a vacation in Hawaii. Do I know at what point any of that happened? There's been a ton of reporting, especially from our friend Mark Stein, on the fact that LeBron did FaceTime Luka that morning to say congratulations. I think that LeBron's problem in not showing up at the presser, if that was indeed he was in town and that was a decision he made, has a lot more to do with the Lakers organization than it does with Luka. We have seen LeBron show up for these press conferences, by the way. So it's not as if, he's too above it. He showed up for ADs. He showed up for JJ Redick's, I believe. So this is something he does. And the fact that he wasn't there, that's kind of why it's more notable, because he's done it in the past. But I think it has more to do with his frustration with the Lakers. He believes he's played at a level where he deserves an extension. He shouldn't be an expiring contract. And two things can be true. He has played at that level. However, also, would be 42 years old if the Lakers signed him to an extension. They don't know what kind of shape or sort of, and I don't mean physical shape, I mean basketball shape he's going to be in at that point. And the truth is, as we just discussed, if one of these other big players come available, and by the way, someone always does. We didn't expect Luka Doncic to be available, and there he was. So there is always someone at some point in this process who you sort of raise your eyebrows, wow, that big star is going to change teams. And they don't want to be tied up with 42-year-old LeBron when they could get, say, a Giannis or Jokic or someone else. And I'm not trading Jokic off the Nuggets, by the way. I hope he stays there for the rest of his career. But I'm just saying that there's always someone who pops available. And two things can be true. LeBron probably does deserve an extension. And it's true that the Lakers kind of can't afford to give him one if they want to keep their cap open enough to sign a younger co-star for Luka going forward into the next 5 years. And it's created a really uncomfortable situation.
Yeah, the Lakers' advantage in a deal in the summer of 2026 is that they do have potentially really valuable draft capital to trade. And because of some of that flexibility, maybe they don't have to give back a bad contract in a deal. A team that might be trading a star that makes a ton of money. More often than not, you have to take back at least one bad contract. The Lakers, because of that flexibility, maybe they wouldn't have to. They certainly don't have like this depth of young talent to deal. That's not the Lakers' strength on their roster right now. So you do. I agree with you. You want to keep that flexibility. As far as LeBron not showing up, look, there have been, as we've talked about, a lot of questions about his commitment to the franchise. Not to his teammates, not to Luka Doncic, but his commitment to the franchise. He could have answered those questions by showing up. He could have. Yeah. If he walks into that facility and is right there with the rest of those teammates, not to take questions, but that would have sent a pretty powerful message that he was all in with his team for next season.
That's not a message he wants to send right now.
Agreed.
That's obvious over the summer that, in fact, he wants to send the opposite message. Let me show a photo of my workout in Cleveland. Let me show a photo of my workout at the Clippers facility. All of the other sort of baiting things that he's done. Even the photo shared of him overseas in Europe with Maverick Carter was a little bit of a, tweak of, we're Maverick starting this other basketball league, and maybe I'll do that at some point. So he is making it clear that he is not simpatico with the organization. And that is because he feels that they're putting one of the best players who has ever played the game of basketball on an expiring contract. And that is not something that he feels, befits who he is and how he has played in recent years. And again, two things can be true. He is right that he isn't getting what he, quote, deserves with what he has kind of basketball he has put out in the last couple of seasons. And also the Lakers are right. They can't really afford to give him the kind of deal that he would want for the amount of money that he would want, because they need to keep that money for that flexibility you're talking about and to get a co-star for Luka who can be there for 5 or 6 years, not just one more year.
What do you think of Bronny not being there? I mean, he's got 3 years left on his contract, and this is someone that, if you believe the Lakers, is going to play a role on this team next year. And I don't know where he was. Maybe he was in LA, maybe he wasn't, but I thought him not being there was almost as notable.
I did too, actually. And in fact, I think that was the one that raised a little more eyebrows for me. And look, Bronny's young enough still, and everything's complicated. And I can't even imagine the family dynamic of your dad is clearly at some sort of odds with the organization. And do you go or do you not go? Is there a loyalty check here? So I don't blame him, because it's a very complex situation. But I thought he was maybe a little bit of the collateral damage in this, just in the fact that, he probably should have been there. And then he wasn't. And maybe that was his decision. Maybe it was because it was so complicated. Maybe he left on vacation with LeBron. Maybe they left earlier than we think. I don't know. But that was the one actually that raised a little bit more eyebrows for me than LeBron not being there, because LeBron has messaged and signaled all summer that he is not all in with the Lakers, not his teammates, not on the court, but just with the franchise and the way they're running things right now. And I just think that Bronny's in a different situation. Austin Reeves, by the way, there were a couple of people asking questions about him. He's on a sneaker tour in Asia. So he was not going to jet back for this press conference. No word on if Austin Reeves FaceTime Luka Doncic. I mean, this is also parsed now, but yeah, I mean, I think the fact that we saw that in person as opposed to just social media, that's what's notable about the LeBron thing. It's not, oh my God, I can't believe my fainting couch, he didn't show up. It was more just, okay, this is now extending in person, not just social media tweaks. And we'll just have to see how that plays out over the course of the season, because I've told you many times, LeBron James, I absolutely positively believe will be with the Lakers on opening night. I just don't see that changing. But as the trade deadline approaches, is he going to decide somebody else is going to offer him an extension while the Lakers aren't? I don't know. So we'll see what happens and what that dynamic is over the months leading up to February.
Yeah, and look, I don't think that Luka Doncic was clocking exactly who was at his press conference. I don't think he was scribbling down who was not in Vegas taking pictures with Nick Carter with him.
Yeah.
But I do think it was notable that a guy who is a role player on this team, who is under contract for the next 3 years, who is presumably going to be part of the Lakers when it is fully Luka Doncic's team, who lives in Los Angeles, whose family is in Los Angeles, wasn't at that press conference. I think it's definitely notable. All right. We brought up Giannis a moment ago, and we are less than 2 months away from the start of training camp. There are still some questions about whether Giannis will be in Milwaukee's camp. ESPN reporting this week that nothing was set in stone with Giannis's future, which does not rule out the potential for a Giannis deal. We've seen some pretty big deals, Rachel. August, September, Kyrie Irving, Damian Lillard, just to name a couple. I feel like I've pissed off Milwaukee enough over the last few months talking about Giannis's future. But like, if put yourself in Bucks fans' shoes, would the silence and the uncertainty be worrisome for you when it comes to the short-term future of Giannis?
I mean, I think anytime a star has sort of reasons to contemplate leaving, you're nervous as a fan base. And frankly, with today's NBA, you should be nervous your big star that you love is leaving no matter what, because as we just were talking about, under any circumstances, one of these guys could either ask for a trade or, in the Luka Doncic case, be traded unexpectedly. But yeah, I mean, if you're a Milwaukee Bucks fan, you're really hoping that he stays. And by the way, if he does start the season with them, that's not even a guarantee that he'll finish the season with them, because how does things go for the first few months of the season? It could be that in an East that is, I'm just going to say, less competitive, that they actually do better and exceed expectations, do better than people think. Or maybe if in a lesser competitive East, they're still struggling, Giannis might decide to change his mind. I personally hope that he stays because I think that relationship between Giannis and the people of Milwaukee is very special. We've talked about this. I certainly understand championships being very important. This game is about winning and losing. But to not acknowledge that those kinds of relationships, what Damian Lillard has with the Portland Trailblazers fans, was just so strong that he came back, right? And that the franchise wanted him back, even though it's not the most team-friendly deal. The relationship that Kobe had here with the Lakers. I mean, there's just some Dirk in Dallas. There's so many. Devin Booker is building with the Phoenix fans. That's really special too. And it doesn't replace winning rings, but it is something that is worth throwing into the mix and having that be in sort of, not if not equal, large footing in making your decision. So I hope he stays. I feel like, so much changes in the NBA so quickly that even if they don't start the season super competitive, things could go forward in a way we don't expect. But if he is available, look, there's a ton of teams we know that have been making inquiries on him. And I have to think that if he is available, there will be 29 teams making inquiries on him.
So in the absence of anything definitive from Giannis, I fall back on the same position that I've had for months, that Giannis has to be thinking two things. One, am I okay with a gap year? Because regardless of what you think of the Eastern Conference, this is not a team that can win the Eastern Conference. They can be more competitive than maybe people suspect or expect, surprise some people. But right now, this Bucks depth chart, no. Kevin Porter Jr. right now is your starting point guard. Gary Trent is your starting two guard. Kyle Kuzma is your starting small forward. Off the bench, you've got Cole Anthony, AJ Green, Taurean Prince, Bobby Portis is back, Jericho Sims. Giannis is still great. Top three player in the NBA. Miles Turner, we've talked about this, I think is an upgrade for them at the center position. Good player. That's not winning the Eastern Conference. That's probably putting you right back where you were at the end of last season, which is in that 4-5 range and fighting to get out of the first round. Giannis has to decide if he's okay with that. And he also has to decide if he believes that John Horst and the Bucks have a vision that is realizable for 2026 and beyond, that they can do some things in the summer of 2026 that will add that second star. Look, to win anything in the NBA, you've got to have a great co-star. This is the problem the Lakers are going to come up with, next summer, when whether or not LeBron's there or not, they're still going to need a number two guy to play opposite Luka Doncic. Giannis needs a number two guy. Miles Turner is not a number two guy. Very good player, good role player, proven he can be a pivotal player on a team that is close to winning a championship. But they need a number two guy. He's got to believe that John Horst's plan, or whatever they're presenting to him, is an actionable plan, is a realizable plan. So until we get some clarity on what he thinks about those two questions, I think you got to be nervous if you're in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, look, as I said, you should be nervous because, frankly, as an NBA fan in any team, you should be nervous, and certainly in a situation where a guy is considering his options. I think one of the barriers to Giannis being traded is that Giannis would have to ask for a trade. That I know if you were running the Milwaukee Bucks franchise, you think that they should deal him for the good of the franchise.
Well, hold on, because I get tagged with some of this a lot. The people are saying deal no matter what. I have, but I've said that only if he's not committing to an extension, right? Like if he says to them tomorrow, like, I'm in for 3 more years, of course you bring him back. You want the guy there for the lifetime of his career. If you can get his name on a long-term contract, I'm of the belief, and the stats back it up, that Giannis' game is going to age pretty gracefully, right? Like he's not going to be as explosive as he was in years past, but he's proven that you can be a great player with 0 3-point shot. Like his 3-point numbers have actually declined as his career has progressed. If he says to them, I'm in, here's my name or my promise to commit to this team long-term, I do it. On the flip side, if he doesn't, that's when I think the Bucks need to be proactive, because the longer he has on his deal, the more teams that are available for them to talk to.
It doesn't look like from the outside that the Bucks, no matter what Giannis's deal looks like are going to volunteer to trade him. And I personally think that's the right decision, because when you have a star like that, as the Bucks organization and franchise and fans know, it could be 50 years before you get another one. And I just think you hold on to him as long as you can in this anything can happen NBA. But that being said, that means that Giannis will have to actually go in and ask for a trade. And for a guy like Giannis, who does not see himself as a guy who, goes in and demands a trade, I think that is another factor that he is thinking about, either explicitly or, just in the back of his mind somewhere, is taking that final step of going in and saying, I want to be traded. I want to leave Milwaukee, and having the fans know that he is the one who left them. I think that that's probably, again, not the most important factor, but I think that is something in there with all of these decisions that are being made right now.
Yeah. He has agreed to 2 massive extensions in Milwaukee very recently, in 2020 or 2021 rather, and 2023. Mm-hmm. So, or I think it was 2020 when he agreed to the extension when they made the holiday deal. So he's given them their commitment. I just wonder if, and I don't know that it necessarily has to be Giannis walking into John Horst's office saying, trade me, as much as it is like, look, I'm not going to sign an extension, and unless you get me another big name star next summer, I'm also not going to sign an extension. I think there's a bit of a gray area where he doesn't have to ask out. The same kind of stuff with Fox, with Anthony Davis, just basically saying, I'm not going to do it, which has the same weight as a trade demand. I think there's a gentler way to ultimately do it. But I think the Bucks have to decide, or have to figure out, if he doesn't sign an extension this summer, and obviously he's not going to do that, at least not with the current situation, or doesn't want to do it next summer, then things get pretty complicated for them in Milwaukee. But I think the silence it's always revealing, right? Like, and there's been these interviews that Giannis has done, like he did the I Show Speed clip over in Greece, where he's like, hey, yeah, I'll probably be back in Milwaukee. I saw another thing earlier today where it's like, all in on Milwaukee, baby. Somebody yelled at him and he repeated it. Like, it's a whole lot of stuff that you can read between the lines. But for right now, there's not been anything definitive from Giannis or his team, and that would make me a little bit nervous if I'm Milwaukee. On the free agent market, things have largely dried up. You've still got some things to work out with the restricted free agency. We got into Jonathan Kuminga last week. Josh Giddey's out there, Quentin Grimes, all these guys. I'm going to guess. I mean, Kuminga may be the outlier, but these other guys are probably going to wind up figuring out short-term deals with their team. The one intriguing name to me that's still out there is Russell Westbrook, who declined a player option in Denver to hit free agency this summer. Had a pretty good year with the Nuggets last year. 75 games, still very durable, averaged 13.3 points, about 5 rebounds per game. He is not expected to command anything more than the vet minimum salary from whatever team he signs with. So what do you make of Russ still being unsigned? And do you think there's any chance that we get into training camp and he's still a free agent?
Maybe. I mean, we've heard rumors, right, of teams that do have some interest. It's not as if it's, a completely dead market. And you just pointed out, he played all of those games with the Nuggets. More importantly, he started 37 of those games. More importantly, he got the cosign of Nikola Jokic. So the stink of how the Lakers situation fell apart, and then the Clippers situation didn't fall apart, but they clearly didn't want him back. I think that is off him to a degree, that there is a feeling now, if you get him in the right situation, he can actually help your team, because he very specifically helped the Nuggets last year. It has to be the right team, though, right? So we've heard versions of the Sacramento Kings having interest in him. I don't really understand that, because they have so many guards sitting around. And I wouldn't really understand that on Russ's side, because the thing Russ wants to do, especially if he's taking a vet minimum, is play, right? He wants to be able to play. And he feels he showed that last year. Again, 37 starts, that he can still play. And if not as a starter, as the primary backup. So when someone gets hurt, as inevitably always happens, he can jump in there and start. And that even when he doesn't, he'll get a lot of minutes coming up from the bench and leading that bench unit, which, by the way, he's very valuable doing. He's a fantastic leader still on the court, energizer, all of those things. The interesting party to me is the New York Knicks, because they have been reported to have interest. I don't know if that will eventually blossom into offering him a contract, but that's a team that needs a guy like him, that actually has a slot for a guy like him. I think he would flourish in New York. I think New York fans would love him. And I think he would be able to fill that sort of vet energy role really well. They just got to get the rest of the guys on the team to sign on, because this is not a decision that a front office makes alone.
Yeah, I think the Knicks signing Jordan Clarkson took them out of play.
You think so?
I do. They've got Tyler Kolek there. They've got Deuce McBride there. I think getting Clarkson to be that kind of Russish type of player, because that's kind of what he is, I think that took the Knicks off the board. My understanding...
I thought they were still looking, but you would know better than me.
Yeah, I think that's... Maybe they're on the list, but I think they're far down the list.
Okay.
I still think at the top of the list is Sacramento. I agree with you. Currently, Sacramento is not a roster that needs a Russell Westbrook, but the Kings are still in play for Kuminga. And my belief is if the Kings pull off a Kuminga deal, it's probably going to involve Malik Monk, being moved.
Sure.
And if you move Monk, all of a sudden you've got some room for a player like Russ. Russ can do some of the things that Malik did as a bench player, multi-position. So I think that's the one to watch the closest. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. The more time passes, the more likely I think Kuminga comes to some kind of short-term deal with Golden State, and at least for now is back with the Warriors, going into next season. But if a Kings deal comes together, I can see that happening. There are other teams out there that make some sense. Like Phoenix is still looking for help at the guard spot. Indiana with no Halliburton needs some help. Milwaukee, we talked about them. They could just try something, hit the Russell Westbrook break glass in case of emergency button and see if that works out with him playing alongside Giannis. You've heard some talk about a reunion with Durant in Houston. I doubt that, but I
don't see that happening.
That would be fascinating. The problem is, when I bring up Russ to teams, and I actually really like Russ. I don't want to just say this I think his competitiveness is contagious. I think he's a great teammate. His surliness with the media, his public perception is built off a lot of scar tissue from his time in Oklahoma City. Basically, or even going back to UCLA when there were a lot of skeptics about him. His ability to play point guard, his ability to be a starter, all the things he overcame. Even go back to the finals. Didn't Magic Johnson call him the worst finals point guard ever? You were at the ESPN back then, but didn't he? Yeah.
Something to that effect.
Yeah. Something to that effect. Even at his apex, he's taken arrows from an all-time great like Magic Johnson. But what it boils down to is I think he's a good locker room guy and can deliver in the regular season. This brings me to my point that teams bring up to me all the time. His postseason numbers, Rachel, have been really, really bad. You look at this past postseason run with Denver, 39% from the floor, 32% from three. Year before that, postseason, 26% from the floor, 23.5% from three. Season before that, 41%, 35%. Season before that, 33%, 25%. His numbers go down in the postseason. I'm not even bringing up the turnovers, which are not great either, and some of the decision-making, which is not great as well. When teams are looking at this saying, look, he's certainly someone that can be a middle reliever in baseball. He can eat some innings up for us, during the regular season, but we can't count on him in the playoffs. We can't play him extended minutes in the playoffs. So that to me is what's working against Russ right now. And it is a pretty reasonable take, I think, from teams that are looking at options. Do we sign a Russell Westbrook, or do we keep a spot open? Do we go with a two-way guy, or do we go with a cheaper alternative, someone we can develop? There's just a lot of other options, I think, for teams that don't badly need a Russell Westbrook. I do think, to bring it full circle, I do think he signs somewhere. We'll see what happens with Sacramento. I can certainly see Phoenix taking a flyer. I could even see Milwaukee taking a flyer. I'm not sure about Indiana, what they want to do with this group, but I could see a veteran team that's trying to win regular season games bringing Westbrook in, because I think he can still help with that. I think the jury's out, though, whether he can be an impactful player in the playoffs. That's just kind of become, the numbers don't lie, and they are what they are.
So you're saying this is a can't play Cantor situation?
Oh, the old Billy line. I don't think it's quite as bad, because I think Russ, when he's motivated, can be a decent defender. The can't play Cantor was he's just a turnstile out there. Sorry, Giannis, I do like you too, but there's, I don't think he's quite at that level, but when the shooting numbers are low 40s, high 30s, low 30s, high 20s, the math doesn't math, and that is going to make it tough.
Well, here's the thing Russ has to decide, frankly, that LeBron has to decide. Some of these guys who have stayed in the game because A, fitness and sort of health has been revolutionized in their time in the NBA and they can actually play so much longer. And B, because the salaries are so high, guys are very reluctant to walk away from them, is that you now have this generation of once great players who are playing at an age that we didn't quite expect them to, right? We did not, as great as LeBron is, as durable as he's been, nobody was predicting, including LeBron himself, by the way, because I remember talking to him about this when he sort of hit 30. No one thought that he'd be playing at age 41, which he will be by the end of this season. And Russ, we all talked about for years, his game isn't going to age very well, right? Because it's built on athleticism. Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, they can shoot, until they're 60. That's going to age well. Russ's game isn't going to age well, but here Russell Westbrook still is. And I agree with you. Somebody is going to sign him this year. And the issue for these guys who are now sort of in this uncharted position is if you're going to stay in at this age that most people don't, whether it's, LeBron, as old as LeBron or younger, but, maxing out your particular playing window, what do you really want, right? If you're LeBron, do you want the absolute max salary? And if that is what you want, you probably won't get re-signed with the Lakers after this last season is done because they don't want to give him that. Would you want to stay with the Lakers more than anything because your life is in LA now and you're willing to take less money and less minutes and sort of, play a very different role than you ever have in your career? Is Russell Westbrook someone who at this point, I want to stay in it. I want to keep hooping. I want to play basketball. And is that a situation where he would feel comfortable doing that during the regular season, but largely being off the court for key moments in the playoffs? These guys just have to decide. Vince Carter, I thought, was a really interesting situation because he was so sure and so explicit about what he wanted to do. You remember that there was a time where the Warriors, when they were the Warriors with Kevin and Steph, had interest in signing Vince, right? He could be that end of the bench kind of, locker room leader. And it could be a way of finally getting Vince a ring and all of that stuff. And he very pointedly didn't want that. He said, I want to play basketball. I don't care about a ring as much as I care about the joy I get from playing basketball. And he signed with all these, frankly, terrible teams that just wanted Vince Carter on their roster so he could extend his playing career. Russ has to decide what he wants and what he's willing to do to stay in the game. And LeBron has to decide that as well. And once those guys reach that decision, they can much more effectively steer their own careers into where they want it to be. And in Russ's case, maybe whether he stays in the league or not depends on what kind of role he's willing to accept.
Yeah, I don't even know if it may have been at that point a few years ago, like after, let's say Washington, but I think we're just past that. I think teams, like even if he came in and said, I'm willing to just be a regular season guy, don't play me in the playoffs. I just don't think teams are looking at him like that anymore. I mean, LeBron's interesting too, in that, like, is LeBron going to get $60 million from somebody next year? Like, is any team out there going to pay LeBron? And look, I preface this by saying LeBron is worth every nickel of the whatever amount of money he's making because he sells tickets. He drives ratings.
He's going to be underpaid for as many years. Underpaid.
I just don't know if a team's going to be out there saying, like, I can commit, X percent of my salary cap that to a guy that may be a third option on my team.
I don't think there's any question someone will. It just probably won't be somewhere he wants to play.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There will be teams out there that sort of say, we don't know what we're doing right now. We don't have anything going right now. Man, it sure be great to get LeBron James in here. He could win us some games and he sells tickets. But those aren't going to be the teams that are in contention to make the NBA Finals and win the NBA Finals. So again, he just has to decide, does he want to go out on top, quote unquote, being a key member of the Los Angeles Lakers rotation, giving it one last go to win a title this year, earning $50 million until, forever, and then retire and go into the sunset and maybe play in this European situation that Maverick is instituting, which, by the way, is going to be very attractive to some of these guys. It's not a full league season. It's show up for a week or two in exotic locations around the country, play some games, go back home for a while, and then decide later, okay, in a month or two, am I going to play the next event? So that could be appealing, and that could sort of be his gentle exit out of the NBA. But they have to decide, what do you want? Because the options available to you are not everything. And for a guy like LeBron, who is used to his option being everything, everyone wants him. Everyone would pay him the max. Everyone would kill to have him on their team. That doesn't exist anymore. And that's not disrespectful to him. It's just literally what happens. You can't be, despite the Nike commercials, you can't beat Father Time.
Hey, he can always follow in the footsteps of the only man that is his peer, and that is Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And finish his career in Washington.
The Washington Wizards, baby.
They have the cap space. They can offer.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. All right, let me finish with a topic that you wanted to get into, and that is De'Aaron Fox recently signed a 4-year, $200+ million extension with the San Antonio Spurs. Not all that surprising. Fox was, brought there for a reason. He was up for a contract extension. Didn't play a ton of minutes with Victor Wembanyama. I think it was 120. But the Spurs apparently had seen enough. They gave him 4 years, $229 million to be exact. Your thoughts on San Antonio maxing out De'Aaron Fox?
Yeah, it's just a lot to commit to De'Aaron Fox, especially on a team where you do also have other good young guards that you are trying to develop, like Castle and some of the other guys on their roster. And I'm interested in this only because I am super interested in the fate and path of Victor Wembanyama. I've said this several times. I think if, health doesn't become an issue and they build the right team around him, this could be one of the top 10 players of all time. He is that physically gifted. He works that hard. He has a maniacal work ethic. He's interested in expanding his mind and his game, and he's very receptive. And San Antonio seems like it's the perfect place for him to do that. And San Antonio has been historically really careful about building its roster. So I don't want to doubt them. Oh, what do I know, sitting in this chair that they don't know? But it just caught my eye as, wow, that is a lot to commit to De'Aaron Fox, who is a borderline all-star, for so much money. It is not going to be a tradable contract. I just don't see a lot of teams wanting to have a Bradley Beal situation on their hands, where a guy is actually a good contributing player, but is so overpaid that it causes all of this resentment and it hampers your team going forward. I was surprised, not that they paid him, but that they maxed him out the way that they did, because I just assumed that while that extension was assumed when they agreed to trade for him, that it wasn't an agreement for a max, and that there would be some understanding of, hey, yes, you are technically eligible for this, but with what we are trying to build around Victor Wembanyama, we're going to pay you a lot of money. But it might not just be that much money. And it surprised me.
Yeah, which guys have taken a little bit less. We've seen that on some of these recent extensions. The Knicks are a prime example for multiple guys. Jalen Brunson took a little bit less. Mikal Bridges just took a little bit less. So that's happened. It is a staggering amount of money. You throw in the 5th year of that deal, all of a sudden you're talking close to $300 million over 5 years. It's a lot. Now, I do look, if in 2 years' time, the Fox, Castle, and Harper are still in the Spurs roster, then I think it's problematic, because then you're going to have to pay these guys a lot of money. I still believe that whether it's before the start of training camp, before the trade deadline, before next offseason, or during next offseason, there's another domino to fall in San Antonio. And I think one of those... They've got the draft capital. They've got the salary pieces in Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson. And they've got the blue chip guys with Castle and Harper. So I think they're going to be, and they believe they're going to be in play for a big star over the next 12 months. So that would make this deal a little less head scratching.
Because if you're in that kind of play for that kind of thing, is Castle the one you want to give up?
I don't know. I'm not convinced Castle's a point guard. So, and I don't know what Harper turns out to be either. Yeah. Like, I think Fox is obviously a pure point guard. He's proven that at an all-star level the last few years. Mm-hmm. I think their plan is going to be to move off one of those guys. And I think you can have Fox and Castle, Fox and Harper coexist in the same backcourt long-term. Again, 2 years from now, if they come up with nothing, you're looking down the barrel of paying a lot of money to a lot of guys. Victor's couple of years away from a contract extension. Castle's finished his rookie year. Harper's not even a rookie yet, so they've got a little bit of a runway. But
do you think this was a good deal? Would you have done this deal if you were in the Spurs?
I would have tried to talk him down a little bit to try to get him at a lower percentage of the cap, because that's kind of the ball game there. Every little bit counts, right? Like staying under the each apron gives you more flexibility, and that's what you need. You're trying to do deals. You want flexibility. I do think again they've got a runway here where you don't have to pay Victor quite yet. You're not paying Harper and Castle quite yet. So they've got a little bit of a runway. You still have those guys with movable contracts in Devin and Castle and whomever, Keldon Johnson. So I'm okay with the contract. I kind of expected the contract. I think this was always the deal that Fox was going to get from San Antonio. Now he's got to prove that he can play with Wembanyama. Like obviously the Spurs think so. 120 minutes isn't a big sample size, but obviously they saw something during that time where they believed that that combination, the pick and roll, up tempo, clutch player that Fox is, that's all going to work out ultimately for them. So we'll see. Still good a time to be in San Antonio. Before I let you go, Rachel, I got to throw one thing at you because this has been on my mind for the last couple of days. It's a WNBA question. Okay. I saw the price tag for the Connecticut Sun. Yep. $325 million. That's Steve Pagliuca, the current co-owner of the Celtics, who was outgoing, is willing to pay to buy the Connecticut Sun and move them from the Mohegan Sun Casino to the Boston area, maybe the TD Garden, whatever. That is a staggering price tag. A staggering price tag for a team in a league that continues to hemorrhage money. This league has not made money, Rachel. They have not made money in its existence. And I know that a new TV deal is coming. It's coming.
The TV deal kicks in next year, right?
It's coming. The TV deal kicks in next year. It's going to make things better, but it doesn't guarantee that the money's just flowing, right? Like it still costs a lot to operate a league. There's going to be a new CBA that changes players' salaries. It just struck me as a huge number to pay for a WNBA team. I don't know if you had a reaction to that sale, but when I saw that number, I was like, oh, wow, that's a huge number.
Well, my reaction, first of all, was moving them to Boston would be a great idea. Because
100%.
It's just, I don't know, where they play now does not match.
I'm from New England. I only go to Mohegan Sun, or now I don't anymore because there's Encore in Boston. But when I was younger, I only went to Mohegan Sun when I was drunk and could get a ride from Boston College to the casino so I could lose some money down there. It is like a 2+ hour ride down there.
Drunk, Chris. I've never seen you drunk.
People in Connecticut don't go to the Mohegan Sun games. Their attendance is terrible. It is like going to Boston, no matter what. Like that's the other side of it. Like Kathy Engelbert and the WNBA are all like, oh, maybe we're not going to move them there. Like, of course you move them there if you have the opportunity. It's crazy.
I mean, look at the Liberty. Moving to Brooklyn was a huge boom for them and completely changed their dynamic and fan base and everything else. So that was my first reaction. As for the money part of it, first of all, you, I'm sure, have a grasp on how billionaires pay taxes and millionaires pay taxes. And the idea that something is operating at a loss is sometimes an advantage for them because it cuts down on the amount of taxes they have to pay, Chris, because the way our country works right now, people with more money are taxed less. So I don't think financially, just in terms of, is this a good investment? I think you can look at it as the league is only going to trend up. That is the history of so many of these sports leagues. And you can kind of tell at this point that the WNBA is not going to fail like some of the former soccer leagues or some of the former startup leagues that we've had. So you will eventually have an investment that's worth that money. And in the meantime, losses aren't the worst thing to show on your tax returns. So I just think that this is what we're seeing with the valuation of the Valkyries recently is just that, there is a buying mindset among very rich people for the WNBA who really believe collectively that this league is only going to continue to grow and want to get in at what we one day may look at $325 million as the bottom floor. I mean, we talk about these NBA franchises that are for sale and we talk about, what the Lakers just sold for. You compare that to what Jerry Buss paid for them. I mean, it's insane, right? So I think a lot of people still see this, no matter how high that price tag gets and whether it, goes up by another 100 million or something, as a really good investment for the future. And again, hemorrhaging losses is not necessarily the worst thing with the way our tax system works, especially for the sort of corporations that millionaires and billionaires form to buy these teams.
I get it, but I also think that people buy these teams to make money eventually, right? Like, they're not looking long term. You don't want to have an asset you can write off on your taxes, do you? Like, I don't get the sense that's.
Well, as I said, I think this is an investment in something they believe will turn into.
Obviously, 100%.
I don't think anyone's buying it thinking, man, this is going to be a loser forever, but that's good on my taxes. I'm just saying that if it takes a while to get there, the way our American tax system works right now, and I'm not giving any value one way or the other, it's just a fact, is that if you have a lot of money and you are able to move your assets around in a certain way, you pay less taxes when you have a business that's at a loss, and you can sort of, corral some of your other profit-making businesses under that same umbrella. So you pay less taxes for those businesses because you have this loss on the other side of the ledger. So I think, no one's buying in because they're like, oh, good, a way to improve my taxes. But I do think that if it takes a while to become, quote, profitable, I think there are people who are okay with it because in the end, the balance, the losses are not as much as they look to the, general public eyeball. That's all.
Yeah. It's just wild that the crappiest team in the WNBA, which is what Connecticut is right now, just sold for like $80 million less than the Bucks sold for in 2014. When Mark Lazary and Wes Edens bought that team. That's how much the Connecticut Sun have sold. That was just such an eye-popping number when it broke out for that team. And look, the new TV deal, like, I'm not too deep in the weeds on this, the WNBA salary stuff. I follow it more on a casual basis. Sure sounds like there's a lockout coming or some kind of work stoppage, coming in the WNBA. But even with this new TV money, like the total revenue is not a big number. Like the NBA, I think operates on like $12.5 billion per year. Like their operating income is huge. The WNBA, even with this money, is probably like $500 million. They're still gonna be climbing hills. It's still gonna be an uphill battle for them to become a profitable, lucrative, league long term. I do think it's interesting. Like, when is Caitlin Clark's a free agent? The summer of 2027.
I think that's right.
I think that's the right number. Like, I'm of the opinion, Rachel, because I think that Caitlin Clark changes the financial outlook of a WNBA team more than any NBA player ever did. And it's not to, like, even LeBron, 2010, that was big. Going to Miami changed their valuation, sure, changed their fortunes. But Caitlin Clark is a guaranteed sellout every single night. I know she doesn't really they don't do local TV in Indiana anymore because every game's on national TV, but she is a ticket seller, a revenue driver, a merchandise seller, a television ratings bonanza. If it turns out she actually, and I don't know anything about how this is, when you can try to sign to an extension, how that all works, but if she actually becomes a free agent somewhere in 2027, that is going to make the summer of the decision pale in comparison. That's how big that is going to be.
Yeah, I agree. Because, by the way, Caitlin Clark has reached so much of an audience that doesn't frequently watch basketball. Forget women's basketball. She has reached an audience that doesn't even care about basketball. So while some of these moves of these major NBA players have been documented like crazy by people like us, Caitlin Clark, if she becomes a free agent, that will be documented by, when I say mainstream media, I mean non-sports media.
Yeah.
Every second of the way. And by the way, look, all of these valuations, all of this new TV deal, knocking on every surface possible. Can you hear me? I don't know, on this microphone. If something happens, she has a catastrophic injury, all of this investment is going to have to really, it's going to be set back to such a degree, because the degree to which she is the driver, the percentage driver of this success, it's not possible for an NBA player in the post-Magic Bird age. It's just not feasible for them to drive the ratings of a league as much, because there's just enough collective interest in other teams, other players. The league would survive if any of our big stars today suddenly snapped, and didn't exist as an NBA player anymore. But Caitlin Clark, WNBA loses Caitlin Clark for some reason. And again, knock on wood, I don't expect that to happen. But just to give an idea of what the percentage of sort of revenue and all of the things we're talking about, to get back to your valuation question, is based on her, and this on her shoulders, on her health, on her motor alone, it is kind of crazy when we're now talking about not the infancy of the NBA and the dollars we were talking about then, but to your point, $325 million based on the fact that a player for another team is driving so much of the economy of the entire league. That's crazy in and of itself. That's more crazy to me than how high the numbers are getting.
Steve Pagliuca would probably pitch like, you can have the Celtics locker room all to yourself. Like if they move the team to Boston, like I will.
She doesn't want that.
I cut a deal to have. I know she doesn't want that. There's no indications of anything but a team player.
Yeah.
But man, like that free agency, I would love to chronicle it. Like that's worthy of books. That's worthy of every article out there, because like, I'm making this up, but like, let's say LeBron is worth 3x his salary to the league. Like whatever he makes, he's worth 3x to the league. Probably more, but I'm just saying 3x. Yeah. Caitlin Clark is probably 30x to the league.
That's what I was trying to get across, is that it's just crazy. I have not been alive for a time when one player basically drives an entire league, and a well-established 27-year-old league, whatever it is, 27, 28, I don't know.
28, I think, yeah.
28. But I've never seen it before. I've just literally never seen it before. I was a huge football fan as a kid, baseball, obviously basketball. It has not existed in my lifetime that one human is both responsible for, which is incredibly heavyweight, and then everything is resting on the valuation of teams that aren't even her team. I mean, it's just bananas.
Well, Rachel, teams that, like, not to go too far down this free agency rabbit hole, but like teams that like there are one of the reports from the Globe about the Pagliuca deal was that he was going to commit like $80 million to a practice facility for the team in the Boston area. Like that's going to be part of it too. Like, where am I going to go? What's going to have, like, because there's only a set amount of money she can make on a max deal for her next team. Like, what resources do you have outside of, the usual stuff that every team has? How big is your practice facility? Like where do you stay in hotels? Like things like that are all going to be variables. They're going to make all these teams level up. They're all going to be leveling up to try to, I think, to try to recruit her down the line.
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad Steve won't have a say in the Celtics organization anymore, because, her boyfriend is an assistant coach with the Pacers. You draw boyfriend to Boston or to one of these other cities. I don't know.
Give him the Rick Brunson treatment. Give him, here you go, seat in the front of the bench.
I'm just saying. But no, I mean, look, I hope she stays in Indiana. Personally, I really do. Because again, what she has built, this goes back to what I keep saying, what she has built with that fan base is so special. I know she's popular everywhere, all over the world at this point, but nothing is like sort of the fan reaction you get to her in Indiana, the Indiana history with basketball. I think it's a great place for her, and it elevates a place in the WNBA that otherwise wouldn't be getting that much attention because it's not a quote major city or major market. So I hope she stays there. She certainly has indicated not what she's going to do as a free agent years from now, but she has indicated how much she likes being there. So I hope she stays. You might never get your free agent book, but we'll see.
Would love to write it, or at least read it from somebody. And look, she's a Midwestern person anyway. She chose to go to Iowa for 4 years, stay there for, what was it? I think she went all 4 years, right? So she chose to do all that. So maybe she'll make this entire conversation pointless, but I felt it was worth having anyway, because I think that free agency would be really friggin' cool.
Absolutely. And it's a good opportunity to get back to your original point of why the valuations are so high. That valuations for other teams are skyrocketing because of a player who doesn't play for them. Mm-hmm. That is bananas. I have never seen anything like it.
No, me neither. All right, Rachel, we will closely monitor the news, see if there's something worth talking about. Maybe a Lakers-centric trade, or I don't know, maybe relocation that comes up over the next couple of weeks. We'll watch that unfold and reconvene then.
Absolutely.